The following program is a production of Chelmsford Telemedia. Fred Barzyk, television producer-director, has created a historical archive of his 50 years of productions in broadcasting. This program is a sampling from those archives and is addressed to an audience in the year 2100.
Oh, those early years. Oh, I still remember that soldier suit. My mom was so proud of it. Oh, and the girl next door, Barbara Nowicki. Oh, yes, and my best friend, Bob Beeler. And of course, my mom and dad, Helen and Stanley Barzyk. Oh, those early years. Oh, hi. I don't know who you are or how you found this video, but thanks. You see, what I've done is I've kind of gathered together images from my career to kind of show you what it was like to be a producer-director in the 21st century. Today is actually July 19th, 2016, but I want to take you way back to the early years, to 1940s and 1950s. You see, when I was growing up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, we didn't have television. What we had were newspapers, of course, comic books, love them. We had great radio shows.
Look, up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Superman.
And of course, the movies.
You're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. You find he is a wizard, a whiz, if ever a whiz there was. If ever a whiz there was, the Wizard of Oz is one because of the wonderful things he does.
So why the hell should you be interested in me? Maybe because I had one unusual desire, a desire that would help me search for a personal vision using the electronic media of its time. And of course, that was television. These are the magic boxes, you know, the ones that brought all this unusual stuff. You know, the television boxes of the 1950s, they were great. Several years ago, I went back to Milwaukee to kind of capture the early days. Here are some of the videos that I shot back in 2009. It's August 1st, the year 2009. I'm 72 years old and really don't know how long I'm going to be around here. This is my valiant attempt to try to save the television shows and programs I've produced and directed over 50 years. I hope you, the viewers in the year 2100, will look at it as a window on what our life was like in the year 2009. And where am I standing right now? Well, I'm standing right on the street that I grew up in, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. This is on the south side. It was a very Polish neighborhood. My friend James Jankowski lived over there. Bill Sadowski lived over there. There were skis everywhere. My dad, well, he worked in a factory. International Harvester it was called. My mother, during World War II, worked in another factory over there called Perfix, making rockets. And on a warm day, you could actually smell the stockyards from down there. It was a very pleasant but interesting life to live. I must say that in all honesty, I'd never thought that I would be back here, you know, so many years later, and it's television that brought me back here. Well, this is the house I grew up in, 3242 South 7th Street. That was 70 years ago. Yeah, it was a big Polish neighborhood at that time. My friend Bob Beeler lived over there. Next door, Lawrence had a polka band. Terrible, you could hear it all the time. And this is where I learned to play the piano terribly. I painted here, not very well, but I did show some early interest in aesthetics. If you follow me for a second, you see every stair around here had a sharp edge. Well, at 7 or 8, I thought it might be really interesting to round off all these corners. So I took a hammer and rounded them off. I'll tell you, it was quite a neighborhood, but I'll tell you one of the big things, and that was the event, the arrival of television. My God, this is the place, the actual place My friends ran over into the neighborhood and they yelled at me, "It's here, it's here." And I said, "What's here?" They said, "TV. It's at Chester's Tavern." I'm gonna go in. It's now called Donna's Place. I'm gonna go in and ask Donna if it's all right if we come in. You stay right there, okay? Come on in, come on in. Hey, here I am, Donna's Bar. It used to be called Chester's Tavern. This is where my dad used to sit. This was his favorite chair, right about here. He would come here on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday afternoon, maybe on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And my job was, as a kid, to go and get my dad out of the bar so he would come home to eat. Now, you have to understand the routine in a Milwaukee bar. I would come in, they say, "Hey, kid, have an orange soda," right? So I get an orange soda. And then my father's name was Stanley, so they call him Stosh. "Hey, Stosh, have a beer on me." Nice looking kid. And then my father would have to pay back, so he'd have to buy them a beer. My mother's at home, the food's getting cold. What can I say? That was life on the South Side. But more importantly, this is the place where I saw my first television. Can you believe it? Right here at Chester's Tavern in those days. Now it's Donna's Place. Here's to Donna, here's to the South Side, here's to TV.
I'll drink to that.
Right now, I'm standing in the Ohio Street Playground in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. This was where I learned to play a lot of games. Oh, and back over there, that's St. Helen's Church. My mother was married there. I was baptized there and got confirmation there. This was a great playground for the kids. Playgrounds all over Milwaukee, Wisconsin. There was a little pool over here. And during the summer, when I was about 11, 12 years old, the summer program had a gentleman who came in. I think he went to the University of Wisconsin, and he was basically our playground supervisor. You could get baseballs from him, you could get basketballs from him, but his real passion, you know what it was? It was tennis. And he taught me how to play tennis. Right over here, these are the great tennis courts, filled with potholes, filled with rainwater when it rains too hard, where the nets are metal. You have to wind them up to make them really tight. This is where I learned to play tennis, right in here. What memories this tennis court brings back. Oh, look at this, this metal one. It almost reaches the right height, for authentic play. But I gotta tell you the story. I'm this kid, see, like 11 years old in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and this guy here on the playground is gonna teach me how to play tennis. Me and my friend Bob Beeler. Tennis. I could hardly hit the ball, but it was interesting, it was different, and we were the only ones on the entire playground that learned how to play tennis. And then one day, believe it or not, he said to me, the Milwaukee Journal is going to run a tennis championship. How would you like to be the representative of the Ohio Street Playground? Me? Represent the entire... To win the championship, though, here he had to find another kid who was a little bit older than my friend Bob, who would play me so that they could say I actually won a match. I don't know where he found this kid. He had big, thick glasses, and he could hardly run, and I won. And one day, Bob and I headed off on the bus to the north side. Now, you have to understand that going to the north side for a kid from the south side, it just wasn't normally done. We got out there, and I couldn't believe it. There were like 35 tennis courts. They were grass. Everything was beautiful, and I signed up, and they said, you're gonna go on at 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock on court number 15. Wow, 15. I had my Sears Husky pants on, I had a jersey, I had my black sneakers on, and I had a tennis racket that the guy here at the playground had given me. It was a little wooden racket, a few strings were broken. But anyway, the time arrived, and my opponent walked out. He had a white shirt on, white shorts. He had white socks and white tennis. He had 3 tennis rackets, and they were all encased in leather. And he stood there with a band over his head for a sweat. And he hit the first ball. I'd never seen a ball do that. It bounced like that and bounced right back. I couldn't believe it. It hit the ball. What? No, I couldn't even see it. Hit it again. What? I couldn't see it. Hit it again. What? My God, who is this man? Is he God? whacked it again, and again, and again, and again. It was the fastest thing I'd ever... In 5 minutes, I was defeated. I had to go home a loser. Of course, that loss so bad that Bob and I thought it was the funniest thing that ever happened. We laughed all the way home on the bus. And then 2 weeks later, in the mail, I got a letter. It said, Master Fred Barzyk, the Milwaukee Journal. They'd sent me a letter. I opened it up, ripped it up, and it said, congratulations. You are the champion of the Ohio Street Playground Tennis Championship. And enclosed was a blue ribbon, my own blue ribbon, even though I'd lost the major game. That happens in life sometimes. Ohio Street Playground, what a great place. World War II. Death and destruction everywhere. My Uncle Ed served. He got wounded. Oh, at home I heard all about the great battles, the storming of the beaches. Oh yes, the air wars. And Germany surrendered, gave up. But not the Japanese. They kept fighting in the jungles until President Truman decided to drop the bomb. General Douglas MacArthur oversaw the surrender.
I now invite the representatives of the Emperor of Japan and the Japanese government and the Japanese Imperial General Headquarters to sign the instrument of surrender at the places indicated.
Mr. Shigemitsu comes to the surrender table. These dramatic first pictures were made by newsreel war correspondents and Army and Navy cameramen and were specially flown back from Tokyo. The time is 9:05 a.m. The Japanese have been on board exactly 10 minutes. The war is over. Peace is here.
It was VJ Day. Massive celebrations broke out all over the country. Oh, New York Times Square? Oh, it was filled with the sound of happy, laughing, cheering people. And I can tell you, kisses and hugs were the item of the day. Oh, yeah. Back in Milwaukee, my mom and dad took me downtown. I'll tell you, the people were dancing, they're hugging, laughing. It was crazy. You know, a strange woman even tried to kiss me. Oh, gosh. The war was over, and life now changed forever. To honor the fallen soldiers, the city put up memorials, like this one on the lakefront. It was designed by a great architect, Saarinen. It even has an eternal light, our great Milwaukee Memorial. Oh, and this one, a small memorial that sat right outside my old grade school. I walk past that memorial every day on my way to grade school. Oh boy, what memories.
This is the way we go to school, go to school, go to school. This is the way we go to school on a cold and frosty morning.
Where I learned to really live was right there in that grade school, the Oklahoma Avenue School. Oh no, they changed the name of the school? Clement J. Zablocki School? Oh my gosh. It says, please use the main entrance on Oklahoma Avenue. Thank you. You see, this school was on Oklahoma Avenue. And that's why it was called the Oklahoma Avenue School. You know, we had a great principal, Mr. Guile. He was great. You know, he used to go to New York to see plays on Broadway. This is the 40s now, right? Okay? And one day he came back and called the whole school into the auditorium. He announced that the school, we now have a school song. And he taught it to us. Okay, Oklahoma, the Sooners know the way, yay! He had taken a Broadway song from Oklahoma and had made it our school song. Maybe I knew showbiz was going to be in my blood. I got to tell you something else. Mr. Guile was way ahead of his time. One day, he called us all again to the auditorium. This time, he had brought his TV from home, a month's TV. The screen was this big, black and white. He said, "Children, this is an important date. You will remember this for the rest of your life." And I still do. You are about to see the inauguration of Harry S. Truman. The picture. I could hardly see it. I could hardly hear it. I was way in the back of the room. He said, "Isn't this something? The actual inauguration of the President of the United States on TV." Wow, that was something. I'll tell you, television was going to be part of my life forever. Oh boy, and then came graduation. Oh, our motley crew, all 23 of us, had somehow made it through. And now it was on to high school. High school! This was not any high school. No, but one name for a Polish patriot. Pulaski High. That's Pulaski High School. That's where I went to high school. Yep. My homeroom teacher was Mr. Schmidt. Now, Mr. Schmidt was very upset with me. I guess I was not the most appropriate student in his homeroom class. I seem to have talked out a lot, and he was of the old school and would make me go home and write, "I shall not talk in class 100 times. And of course, I would always do it 99 and make him count, and then say, "I'm sorry," and then he would give me again and ask me to do 101, and I would then do 102 and tell him I have one left, right? Well, anyway, this went on for a long time, and I would do such things as I would shut all the shades in the room and tell everybody in the classroom that it was Mr. Schmidt's birthday. Of course, I didn't know if it was his birthday or not. We'd all stand up and sing. It used to drive him insane. So the day I graduated, he walked up to me and says, "Fred, I want you to know, I bought a new suit, I got new teeth, because I've never been so happy to see anybody leave this school as I have you. The only reason I'm in any doubt at all about what's going to happen is you're probably going to force me now to get a television set, because who the hell is going to entertain me?" Hey, look at, they're playing ball, huh? Woo! Got a hit? It's good, isn't it? I'm sitting at the ball field just behind Pulaski High School, which is behind me right over there. I got to tell you this story. This really happened. My friend and I, Bob Beeler, we came down here to watch an industrial game. I think it was Harnischfeger playing International Harvester. Now, you have to understand that these guys that almost made it into the pros had gotten jobs at these factories, and they were given executive titles and big paychecks, and all they did was play baseball. Yep. One evening, we came down to watch the industrial game, and sitting down at the other end of one of these little benches. Sorry, technical problems. Here's the rest of the story as told in 2016. And there she was. She was sitting in the stands, this blonde girl. And we said, "Wow, who's she?" And she's sitting next to a girl I knew from freshman class. And we waved, and they waved back. So Bob and I, we moved down, we started talking, and we found out that this girl was from Minneapolis, and she was traveling to California to be with her dad. Her parents had gotten divorced. Now, divorce was not a good thing in our little world. And we kind of like, "Well, where else are you going?" She said, "Oh, I'm going to stop off in Chicago to see my other cousin." "Oh, yeah? Well, we'll come and see you in Chicago." "Oh, yeah, right, sure." She gave us her address. My God, now what are we going to do? Well, we said goodbye that night. She said, "See you in Chicago." We went over to Leon's custard stand. We had a nice soft cone, and we said, "How are we going to do this?" And well, Bob said, "I've got money from my birthday that I could pay for myself." And I said, "Well, I don't have any money. What can I do? I only have one thing in my life, only one thing that's worth anything." When I was about 7 years old, my aunt gave me a paper stamp collector's book, and she gave me stamps every year, and I would send in for $1 an envelope full of stamps, and I had many stamps. It's probably worth $25. That's it. I'll sell my stamp collection to go see this girl in Chicago. Next day, Bob and I go downtown. We take the bus. We go into this place that sold books and bought and sold stamps. And I showed it to the guy, and I was so proud. And he said, "That's not worth much, $5. $5? No, there's one stamp. It is worth $5. Opened up the page, showed him, $15, and that's it. Take it or leave it. I look at Bob. Bob looks at me. "Okay, we'll take it." We walk outside. This is it. We're going to Chicago. We had the money. Now let's have a plan. Now we're going to say we're going to go to Lake Geneva. That's where my father and mother used to take me all the time. And we're taking the bus, and we're going to go see, walk around the beach and then come back, okay? That's our story, okay? Okay, great. Well, the day arrives. We've got the bus ready to go. My mom packs a little lunch for the two of us. She slips a $5 bill into my shirt pocket. This is going to be unbelievable. We get on the bus and we travel. It seemed like forever and ever and ever. And we finally get off in Chicago. And oh my God, it's so big and there's so many people and everything's moving. We showed the address to this older lady and she said, "Oh, that's not Chicago. That's Evanston, Illinois." Evanston, not Chicago? What are we supposed to do? She said, "Oh, you get there real easy. You just take the elevated." Elevated? What the hell was the elevated? Oh, the train's up there. Well, Bob and I go racing up the stairs. We get onto buy our ticket. We get onto the platform, and here comes a train. Pulls in, and I get on, and Bob's standing there outside. He said, this is the train. No, I don't think that's the train. I said, this is the train. Doors closed. The look on Bob's face was unbelievable. The fear that came across his eyes. His mouth shook, and as the train took off, I could see him running, waving his arms at me. Now what? Well, Bob's smart. He'll take the next train. I'll get off at the next stop. He'll get off, and then we can continue on our way. So the train, here it comes. There's Bob. I see him waving, and the train goes right the hell through. It was an express. It took us forever to finally catch up with each other, and then we hit the Evanston stop. Down we stamped, down the street, moving closer and closer to the house. We get to the house. It's an apartment building, kind of a brick apartment building at the end of a dead-end street with a wall down at the dead end. And I said, "Bob, go." She said, "I'm not going to ring the bell." I said, "You go ring the bell." "No, all right, I'll go ring the bell." So he goes up and he rings the bell, and he rings the bell, and he rings the bell, and he rings the bell. She's not there. Now what are we going to do? Well, maybe we'll just sit down here and wait. Maybe she went out for something. I'm sure she'll be back. At the end of the street, I told you there was this brick wall, kind of low brick wall. We said, well, let's go take a look what's over there. We go over there and we look over the brick wall. You wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe it. It's a beach on Lake Michigan, a beach. And who's on the towel looking straight out at us? It was her, the girl from Minneapolis. Bob and I stood there. We went. She looked at us. She didn't recognize. She rolled over and turned away from us. Now what are we going to do? Well, we finally went there. We reintroduced ourselves, and she was, "Oh, my God, you really made it. You really came. I never thought you would do this." "Well, we're here." She said, "Oh, come back to the apartment. I'll get out of my swimsuit, and we can sit around and talk. I'll give you some sodas." We went back there. She changed. And as we sat there and talked, it became clear that this girl was kind of frightened about going to Minneapolis. From Minneapolis to California. You know, her life had been totally upset by this divorce. We kind of felt sorry for her. And then Bob said, "It's time. I think we got to get going." So kindly as she walked us to the trains where we get onto the elevated train back to Chicago. And at a very nice moment, a very gentle, kind of innocent moment, she gave both of us a kiss on the cheek. We ran up, we got back on the bus, starry-eyed, uncertain. It was getting dark. I think we're really late. I walk into my house and my mother says, "Oh yeah, where were you?" "What?" She says, "I saw Bob's mother, Mrs. Beeler. She said you went to Chicago to see the Chicago Cubs." "Oh, Bob, what did you do?" "Oh, he told the wrong story. Oh my God." I said it was this girl from Minneapolis. Your mother said, "Sit down, eat your supper, and don't ever mention this to your father." I never did. 2 weeks later, I got a letter from this wonderful girl in California, sweet letter. I don't know where that letter is. I kind of lost it. I tell you the truth, I don't even remember her name, which is really kind of sad. But I started my stamp collection again. I now have over 20,000 stamps in my stamp collection. I made it. Graduation from Pulaski High. And now what? College. But where? Oh, I needed low tuition and it had to be close so I could live at home. Well, the only choice, Marquette University. right in the heart of downtown Milwaukee. Created in 1881 as a private coeducational Catholic university. An urban campus of almost 10,000 students. How the hell was I ever going to fit in? I mean, really, I only went to public schools. And let's admit it, church wasn't a big part of my life. But oh boy, the next 4 years changed me forever. Hi, it's August 1st, the year 2009, and what you're about to see is my valiant attempt to try to save 50 years of television programming that I've produced and directed. Yeah, I hope you find it of interest. Look at it as a window into what was happening in the year 2009, and it might be surprising to you in the year 2100. Right now, I'm standing in front of Marquette's Alumni Union Hall. Yep, I went to Marquette University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Enrolled in 1954, the first semester cost me $250. I graduated in 1958, and during that time, I thought I was going to be a sports announcer for radio. Do you guys still have radio in the year 2100? I'm not sure. But it didn't work out that way. I got involved with the theater. It was run by this little Jesuit by the name of John J. Walsh, S.J. And we had this fantastic playhouse that was built in this little dumpy building on the Marquette campus. It's right over there. Well, here it is, yep. This is Teatro Maria. This was, yes, the house of Marquette's major theater program. Yeah, it was actually fashioned out of a bunch of old classrooms and created a theater in the round. It maybe sat 75 people. And the guy who ran this place was called Father Walsh. What a guy, unbelievable. He was a real taskmaster. You know, about 45 years after we had all graduated and left, there was a big retrospective, a kind of a big thank you, an alumni reunion to thank Father Walsh for everything that he had done for all of us. All of them gathered here, and there was an excerpt that I'd like to show you of that reunion. Here are some of the highlights of that celebration, produced by Milwaukee's local PBS station and hosted by my friend and fellow Marquette player, Jim Peck.
Good evening, I'm Jim Peck. In any discussion of the evolution of the theater scene in Milwaukee, there's one name that continually jumps out, the name of Father John Walsh. Father Walsh came to Milwaukee in 1951 to create a theater department at Marquette University. Many people consider the Walsh era to have been the beginning of true professional theater in Milwaukee. Recently, a number of the graduates of that 14-year era gathered to pay tribute to the diminutive genius who played such a dominant role in their professional and personal lives. Father Walsh's mission was to build a theater department. He had no idea how literally he was going to have to pursue that mission.
When I came to Marquette, I asked somebody, well, where's the theater? And one of the students said, I'll show you. And they took me up to the attic of the speech school, and here there was an old cupboard with one of the doors hanging off the hinge on one of them, and he opened the thing, and there were 2 hammers and a saw. And he says, this is it. I said, you got to be kidding. He said, no, this is all we got. No costumes, no tools, nothing really except 2 hammers and this saw.
With no existing theater and no costumes, Father Walsh soon learned to improvise. An early production of Dr. Faustus was performed in modern dress using the ballroom of the Wisconsin Hotel. Lead actor Lee Yost's character was expected to reach the heights of beauty. He remembers the rehearsals.
And Father wanted me to touch the face of Helen of Troy because Faustus desired this experience. And I can't tell you how many times I had to touch Roberta Stallion's right cheek with my left hand because the meaning wasn't there. It wasn't true. You aren't, by Lord, feeling this. Poor girl's cheek was probably raw by the time we opened the show. And the other scene was the incantation, where Faustus is willing to sell all, and Father so frequently in rehearsal registered disappointment, disgust, He would not have been happy until the ultimate abomination appeared at the end of that incantation. But Father, it was successful enough, thanks to your inspiration, that at a matinee, with the nuns in the front seat, on the ballroom floor of the Wisconsin Hotel, and the characters all in modern dress, white tie and tails, the incantation ended, the puff of smoke occurred, and as Mephistopheles arose in the front row, the nun seated next to him let out a shriek like she had seen the pit of hell.
Another thing that happened was that when he left the theater after the play was over, he passed these nuns in the hall that were all talking in the hall outside the theater. And Lee Yost said, "Good afternoon, sisters." They all turned to me. They saw who it was.
I guess that meant he
well, I
success.
knew the play would work.
I can tell you, Father Walsh in the theater, that became the whole experience for me at the university. Oh, sure, I did some radio shows. I directed something called The Witching Well, a whole bunch of kids' fairy tales. And they were actually circulated to small radio stations throughout Wisconsin. It was in this primitive studio that we mustered our strength and our talent and put out these radio shows. But let's admit it, I really spent most of my time at Teatro Maria with Father Walsh.
Father was assuredly a unique combination. The fervor of an evangelist, the vision of an artist, a touch of the poet, and a smidgen of P.T. Barnum. As a youth, John Walsh studied with the Moscow Art Theater's Maria Uspenskaya. He later became the first priest to earn a doctorate in drama from Yale. His scholarship was impeccable. He casually demonstrated in rehearsals that he was a better actor than all of us put together, and his knowledge of theater seemed endless. Yet, while emphasizing the larger ideas the arts are capable of, he did not produce snobs at his theater. He produced working professionals. It was the players of the early 1950s who helped build the famous Teatro Maria out of an old library in Bellarmine Hall, where the Jesu Parish Center now stands, hauling seats and curtains from the Davidson Theater in downtown Milwaukee, reconfiguring this wooden O into, eventually, Walsh's vision of a three-sided intimate theater and workspace in which amazingly complicated productions could be produced and amazingly varied training took place. The dance room, where Sheila Riley and Father both inspired and tortured their charges, doubled as the backstage. The green room doubled as makeup room. The costume shop doubled as dressing room. And inventive technical feats regularly stemmed from the twin coffins of claustrophobia known as the light and sound booths. Teatro Maria became a home not only to 6-hour Sunday acting classes, but to some wonderful cast parties that university officials never knew about.
That was my home in the sound booth for over 3 years. I did all of the productions, and what a great opportunity it was. Because when I sat in the sound booth, I could see Father Walsh directing all of these actors because it was an in and around. So I could watch every emotion on his face and the way he directed. I absorbed all of this stuff. Well, there was one time, I have to tell you, see, my mother would give me $1 a day to live on it. I would go out for supper after school finished and before the theater went into rehearsal. So there was this bar down the street. It was called the Red Circle. I would go over there, and for $1, actually, I could get a salad, blueberry pie with some ice cream and a beer, and still had money left over for a tip. Well, one night I'm sitting there, like many nights, and the bartender yells, "Hey, is that Freddie Barzik here? Freddie Barzik?" Yeah. Phone call. Who the hell is this? I run up to the phone, and it's Father Walsh in his sweet voice. "Hi, Freddie. We want to get this rehearsal going. Would you mind finishing your supper a bit early?" "Oh, no problem. I'll come right over." I mean, when a priest calls you at a bar, you go, right? So I chugged my beer, threw everything down, and I raced across to the theater. And then I watched him at work. And I can tell you, this man left. There were no excuses. Oh, he was really hard on a lot of people. Oh, poor Joanne Calanda.
Father decided, I had some non-speaking parts, which was fine. Just go here, do that, and I was fine. And then he wanted me to do Pirate Jenny in Three Penny Opera.
Three Penny Opera.
Yes. And I was, at the time, the shyest person I'd ever known, still to this day. And I wouldn't look people in the eye, and I was very, very shy. And he told me he wanted me to do it, and he set a time for rehearsal, and I came, and he was there, and he told me to do it, and I had memorized it. And I realized that I couldn't do it. And I told him, and I started crying. And he just sat there, probably with that very same smile on his face. And I started sobbing because I realized this was the moment, and he expected me to do it, and I couldn't do it. And he finally just looked at me and he said, "Go over there." Harry Miller was building something on the stage. He was building part of the set, and he said, "You go over there." He didn't point, he just said, "Go over there, and you kick Harry Miller in the shins, and you sing that song to him." And I said, I can't. Or you don't ever come in my theater again. And I sobbed, and I stared at him, and I knew he meant it. So I went over, and I kicked Harry Miller in the shins, and sobbing, I sang the Pirate Jenny song, and I became a different person.
This is Richard Cola, Hollywood director with many hit shows and movies, remembering Father Walsh's invitation to join the Players.
And the theater was jammed because there were posters all over saying, "Come to the initial meeting of the theater because if you want to belong." And the place was jammed, and Father Walsh walked quietly out onto the stage, and he said, "Hello, everybody." He said, "It's going to take me 7 years to teach you not to act." And I thought, my God, 7 years to teach you not to act. I didn't know what that meant. And he told us how difficult it was going to be and what the commitment had to be and what he expected of us. And I remember he always ended by saying, "And it's going to be difficult, and you're going to be here. And if you're not ready to commit to this thing, then just get the hell out of here."
Father Walsh took dancing seriously. I mean, we all had to do it. We had to take ballet and modern dance one summer. And I had this job as a teller in a savings and loan association. And of course, I'd have to bring my dance stuff to work so I could go immediately to the dance class after work. And I carried it in a little bag. And the girl tellers kept asking me, what do you have in the bag? And I said, "It's my ballet stuff." And they, "Sure." And they kept asking me. And I said, "All right, come on into the vault." It was one of those vaults with those big, big doors. We went inside, kind of moved to the corner, and I pulled out my ballet shoes and my ballet tights. I tell you, I was the curiosity of the place. I loved it. Now, the dance class was not pretty. I mean, none of us could really dance. It was his way just to figure out how we could all move. You can imagine me. I'm quite nearsighted, and I would have to take my glasses off. And when you spin, you're supposed to spot on one thing. I couldn't spot, and I used to bump into everybody. And I mean, everybody had to take it. There were 2 nuns studying with us that summer. They had to take the dance lessons. Oh, and of course the newcomer, Father Wetstein. Woo!
I remember Father from the very first day. I was still, as Sylvia Schaefer put it just a few weeks ago on the phone, a baby priest. I came out here about 2 weeks after I was ordained with the mission of getting a degree in public speaking so I could teach public speaking in the seminary. If you've heard priests giving sermons, you know what they think of public speaking in seminaries. The most hated class. So Father said, why don't you switch to drama? I said, "Oh my God." He said, "Well, you'll learn so much about movement and all these other things." I said, well, I called my superior back in New York, and he said, well, he's the boss, so try that. And then when he said, "You've got to go down and get some tights, a dance belt, some dance shoes," I thought I better not call my superior again. So anyway, they showed me a dance shop downtown. Father told me where it was. And I went in with my Roman collar, the whole 9 yards, and wanted a dance belt and all this other stuff. And she said, "Who are they for?" I said, "For me." She said, "You must know that other crazy priest."
I have to admit it, my mother hated Father Walsh. You see, he just took up so much of my time. I mean, I would go and do these rehearsals until, well, my bus service would stop, and I'd have to call my parents to have someone come and get me because it was like, like 5 miles that I'd have to walk. I used to hitchhike until this one time these 3 drunken sailors picked me up, and I never went hitchhiking again, I can tell you that. And my mother would then have to wake my father up, and he would drive out. He would never say anything to me except get in. He would never say a word. I'd get home. I think I really was a burden to my poor parents. And my mother really did suffer. But then one day, it really went over the edge. I got on the bus to go to college, and this woman I had never seen before turns to me and waves her finger at me. And she says, "Now, Fred, you must get home earlier. You're driving your mother crazy." I mean, I didn't even know her, and she knew I was staying out too late. And you think I was the only one staying out too late? Wait till you hear the rest of the stories.
I remember one morning, somebody mentioned earlier the blacked out windows in the theater and so on. We never knew what time it was, and we had been going for hours and hours, and I was sitting next to Father Walsh in the front row there. He said, "Father Wettstein, what time is it?" I said, "It's 3 o'clock." He said, "Is that the morning or the afternoon?" And I said, "It's the morning." He said, do you think they could go a little bit further? I said, "The only people awake are the ones on stage, and the rest are asleep in the dance room." He said, "Good, we can go another couple of hours then."
Everybody's relationship was quite particular, totally different. When you look at the different disciplines that came out of here, Lyle's discipline, John Neumeyer in dance, from dance to painting to sculpture to pantomime to acting to directing. We all had a different relationship with him, and each of us took something from that relationship, whether it was a kind and gentle one or it was a quarrelsome one, but we all took what we needed from that relationship, and it focused us, and it made us believe, and it gave us the opportunity to go and do what we do in the best way we can, and to practice what our craft is, what our art is. And amazingly, what it has given us is a chance to live within that, and it gives back to us. And all we have ever done is just follow what he's given us.
By the end of my senior year, I knew I really wanted to be a director in the theater. I mean, it was everything I had been doing. It was so satisfying. I knew that's what I wanted. And yet one thing happened in that senior year that opened up another door and gave me something else to consider. I'll tell you, even though I was immersed in the theater, I had a desire to make my first film, a movie. But there was no film courses on campus. As a matter of fact, the university only owned one small Bolex 16mm camera, one of those ones that you wind up, has no audio. And you couldn't even take it out without the supervision of the guy who ran the technical side of the communications building, Vince, dear sweet Vince. Well, somehow a friend of mine, Dick McCullough, and I convinced Vince, would he come out and let us make a film if he was there? And he said, "Go ahead, I'll come." And so we scraped together $100 somehow, and I created this little film called The Music Box and the Bottle. It sat in Dick McCullough's basement for 40 years, and eventually he shipped it to me, and I had an opportunity to cut it together many years later. And, well, you take a look in the year 2100. This is the first film done by me, black and white, Bolex, no sound, put together many years later. It's called The Music Box and the Bottle. Once upon a time, not so long ago, in a black and white world, a boy was fashioned from celluloid, 16 millimeters, and 30 frames. This vision, long hidden in a box, forgotten, until now, resurrected from the silence with all its scratches and dirt, reborn. Sad now, as old men we dream dreams, but as young men, we saw visions. Visions with a touch of magic. Magic. Magic.
We are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams, wandering by lone sea breakers and sitting by desolate streams, remembering a time not so long ago when we had visions with magic